All right, what is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest. And today we have a special show for you. Happy 4th of July. I hope you guys are out there celebrating America's birthday, having a ton of fun doing it. This is going to actually be a pretty awesome show. I've got some pretty fun interviews lined up for you, and we have a lot to discuss that's happened this week. So, first thing we're going to go over is going to be the Morgan Scalley head coach in waiting news. What does that mean? How excited am I for Morgan Scalley to take over in the future? Also, we have an interview that will show right after that where we talk to Mason Yellico, the director of scouting for Utah football. So if you're as into recruiting and the college football recruiting process as I am, that should be a really fun one for you. I thought that was one of the most interesting interviews I've done, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that one. Then we'll talk about Utah being the preseason number one team in the Big 12. That's an exciting one. I also have an interview with Manny Fuller, recent Utah commit that plays safety and running back. Super exciting guy there. Also, Nila Tupo. He is an edge rusher / tight end that recently committed to Utah. So interviews with both of them as well. And then finally, just a quick, is the season a failure if Utah doesn't get to the CFP? We're going to talk about all that, guys. We're going to dive into it. It is going to be an awesome show, and there is going to be a ton of content for you guys to dive into for tonight. And as you watch this during the week, there's going to be a lot of different stuff to dive into. Before we get ahead of ourselves, guys, please smash that like button. That'll help get the video out to more Utah fans. Also, comment down below with the video. Anything you find interesting, just drop it in the chat. We're going to be bringing up a lot of topics, and I'll probably give you guys some interesting topics to talk about in the chat. And then finally, subscribe to the channel. We put out a ton of Utah Utes football content. If you're into that sort of thing, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. And seriously, with the interviews we've been getting, with the content we've been putting out, I really don't see why you wouldn't be subscribed if you're a Utah football fan. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and start the show. Go Utes. We are going to start the show talking about Morgan Scalley. If you guys are not aware, it has been made official, at least to the public, which it sounds like it's been official for almost a year now, but it's been made official to the public that Morgan Scalley will be the head coach in waiting for Utah. For those of us that are, big time Utah fans, this is no surprise, and this is something we have been aware of and been expecting for a long time. Morgan Scalley is really the clear next guy, at least to me. It is, the lifeblood of this Utah team over the past 15 years or so, or at least past 10 years, has been a tough defense that does not break, right? It is bend but don't break with not a lot of bend, relentless, smart, nasty ball hawks, right? It's a wildly good defense that we have here. And I just want to give a little bit of data for people that might not be super in the know about Morgan Scalley and about why he's the obvious next choice. Now, I know there are some, questionable character things that have happened with Morgan Scalley in the past, but, I believe in everyone deserves a second chance. And I mean, I'll touch on it a little bit. It's a thing, you can dig into it if you want to find the specific thing, and I'm sure someone will say it in the comments. Morgan Scalley has a past that, there was a time where he was not sure if he was going to continue at Utah due to some information that came out in a private conversation with someone. But I think it was a stupid thing, and he shouldn't have done it. And I'm sure he regrets it a ton. And it does seem like he's moved past that. I don't believe that's really his opinion. I think he said something dumb. We've all said a lot of dumb things, and I don't think it's going to be something he'll ever say again. It's a lesson he's learned. We've moved forward. So now let's talk about his actual resume. So I've pulled data since 2019. So this is 5 seasons worth of data. Morgan Scalley's the defensive coordinator for Utah. So we're looking at the defense. So let's go ahead and start with yards per game. So yards per game for Morgan Scalley's defense. In 2023, they were 17th in the country in yards per game. In 2022, they were 35th in the country in yards per game. In 2021, they were 23rd in the country in yards per game. In 2020, they were 36th in the country for yards per game. And in 2019, obviously a historically good season for this defense. They were number 3 in the country in yards per game. So really good resume there. That comes out to an average of 23rd in the country per year in yards per game. So I wouldn't say that puts us every year in that elite defense ranking, right? Some years were, good, some years were great, and some years, it's well above average. So there's no bad years, and I think that's a good sign to see. And I think an average ranking of 23rd is very good. And I'm going to break down the points per game in a second. But when I break all this down, guys, don't forget this was all in the Pac-12 that had some high flying offenses. Like you think about the offenses some of those years. Oregon, USC, Washington. I mean, there were some good teams out there, and we looked like a really good team going against really good offenses, at least a really good defense. Now, moving to points per game. In 2023, we were 20th in points allowed per game. In 2022, we were 29th in points allowed per game. 2021, we were 32nd in points allowed per game. 2020, 43rd in points allowed per game. So, it's still above average, but not up to the Utah standard. And 2019, we were 6th in points allowed per game. So an average of 26th in the country over that 5-year period. So again, really good average in points allowed per game. Really good team here. We're talking about a defense that has overperformed quite a bit. And I'm sure these numbers are not uncommon to most of you guys that have been following this story. But what I want to show you next is a number that I think really reflects how great Morgan Scalley has been. So every year, 24/7 Sports does a roster talent composite ranking. And what it does is it takes all the players on your team and judges it by what you should be talent-wise. So where you should rank in the country talent-wise. And then, so we're going to match that number. And it's based on how many 3 stars, how many 4 stars, how many 5 stars your team has. We're going to rank that number against the average rankings every year. So in 2023, Utah had the 33rd composite ranking according to 24/7 Sports. In points per game allowed, they were 20th. In yards per game allowed, they were 17th. So more than 10 spots higher in both categories compared to the composite ranking. So how talented they are, how well you would expect them to perform based on talent, significantly higher that year. In 2022, they were 35th in yards per game and 29th in points allowed per game. So in 2022, their composite ranking was 33rd. So the yards per game allowed was slightly worse than you'd expect, just a hair worse. And then points per game allowed was a hair better. So I think you take those two, you kind of break even. He was about where you'd expect him to be. But again, 2022, our offense put up some serious numbers, which means the opposing offenses were, they were taking shots, and it's hard to make sure an offense can't score, at all. So I think when you factor in some of the relevant factors there, that seems about right. Then in 2021, we were 23rd in yards per game allowed and 32nd in points allowed per game. We were the 32nd composite ranking team that year. So that would put the points per game allowed dead even and the yards per game allowed almost 10 spots higher than where you'd expect. Then 2020, so this is the COVID year. This was our worst year clearly in this 5-year period. We had the 39th talent composite ranking, and our yards per game allowed was 36th in the country. Our points per game allowed was 43rd in the country. So pretty dang close there. The roster ranking was 39th, so we were still a tiny bit behind in points per game allowed and a tiny bit ahead in yards per game allowed. So is what it is there. I think the most impressive year is going to be 2019, and I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone watching. In 2019 we had the 47th best composite ranking. So we were almost like in the middle of the pack when it comes to actual talent on the roster, but we were sixth in points per game allowed and third in yards per game allowed. So we were a really good team that year and crazy outperformed where we were expected. So, as a reference point, the average roster ranking for Utah was 37th in the country for the talent composite. But Scalley, his averages outperformed that composite ranking big time. Points per game allowed, it was 26th in the country, and yards per game allowed, the average is 23rd in the country. So I think when you factor all that in, guys, and you'll see even in some of the interviews that I'm going to be playing today, Morgan Scalley gets mentioned, right? These guys like Morgan Scalley. He is part of the roots, the core of this Utah team. And I think he has consistently outperformed what he's been given. And I think the present is great with Whittingham. And until he leaves, I continue to see him doing great things for us. But I like Scalley in a way. I think he has an edge about him. Obviously, the colored past is, it's not what you like, but I do think he has this vibe about him that the younger players like, right? He's a fun guy to be around, but he's also, like a role model type of figure, a guy they can look up to. He's got a good blend of that. At least that's what I get just watching from third person. He seems like a good guy and a fun guy, and all the players seem to love him. And so I'd say pretty exciting future for Utah. Great present with Kyle Whittingham. Great future with Morgan Scalley. That's all I'm going to touch on with the Morgan Scalley situation. Next up, we've got an awesome interview with Mason Yellico, director of scouting for Utah football. Super, super cool video, guys. Smash the like button if you enjoy it. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's watch that video. All right, guys. Very special interview today. We have Mason Yellico on with us. Mason Yellico is the director of scouting for Utah football. Huge honor to have, man. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing tonight?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. Enjoying
Awesome, man.
some
Yeah,
time off with the dead period.
there you go. And it's tomorrow's July 4th. So you guys are probably watching this on July 4th, but we're recording it the day before. So, Mason, if you don't mind, if you want to dive in, just kind of tell the people a little about your role, tell them about your career and your background and kind of how you got here.
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town in western Colorado called Glenwood Springs. Don't know if you ever heard of it. It's right down I-70, kind of by Aspen. So not a lot of sports going on there. Thankfully, I'm sitting down, but I'm about 5'9", 170 pounds. So the Division I athlete life was not going to work out for me.
Yeah, I'm
But I
barely
definitely,
taller than you, so I'm with you. It didn't work out for me either.
hey, love sports, love to play them, but it was never not the D1 level.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I knew I wanted to make a career out of it. It's always been football, basketball, soccer, baseball, whatever. It's always been my life since I was a little boy. So, um, long story short, I ended up at Oklahoma State for college. Supposed to go there actually as a basketball manager, believe it or not, because I loved basketball. That was my sport that I played in high school more than anything else. Huge basketball kid growing up. And then got there. They ended up not having a spot for me. So I was like, well, I came all the way out to school, moved from Western Colorado to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
That
Out here.
must have been fun news, huh?
Oh,
It's
out
funny
there.
looking back, but I'm sure
Yeah.
at the time it
No,
wasn't funny.
it turned out to be like the best thing that ever happened to me
Yeah.
because so they had a spot open just as an equipment manager with the football team. Literally full time laundry. That was my first job ever in football. I was 19 years old, 18 years old, and I was full time laundry. Hated it at first, but then
Yeah.
the second you walk out there on the field of a college football game, like there's just nothing like it. So
Yeah.
that kind of got me hooked, and then I um, kind of looked around. I mean, I was 18, 19 years old at the time, so I didn't know what I wanted to do. But kind of looking around at some other people in the industry and in the building and trying to figure out what they do. And then there wasn't a director of scouting or whatever personnel really at the time, but there was just recruiting, I guess. Director of recruiting was his name. So I kind of took interest in what he did every day and kind of got to learn more about his job and eventually started helping him out at Oklahoma State. So lots of film evaluation and getting the kids on campus and all the same kind of stuff that everyone does. But I didn't even know that existed at the time. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. Um, and I want to make this a career. So I kind of started taking it seriously, did some scouting classes when I was that young with the
Wow.
program called the Scouting Academy. Yeah. And I did well in that, went down to the Senior Bowl a couple times, um, met a bunch of people there. And after my time at Oklahoma State was up, I had a chance to maybe stay there and work unpaid or go to Wake Forest, actually, unpaid as a personnel guy. And I just kind of took the jump and went to Wake to meet some new people. Um,
Yeah.
and that was a crazy transition going to from Western Colorado to the farm country of Stillwater to
North Carolina, right?
East Coast North Carolina. But that was a
Yeah.
really good experience for me too. It forced me to grow up a little bit, and then I was there for about a year when they had like Sam Hartman and all them, and they went to the
Oh, wow.
ACC championship game. Yeah, I didn't have much to do with recruiting their players, but I got to learn a lot about how they got them there and stuff like that. So that was cool. And
Yeah.
then I'm probably one of the only people in Utah history to get a job without I didn't know anybody. I just like randomly applied for a job um, in recruiting and interviewed well, and then I was lucky enough to get hired on as a recruiting assistant or whatever it was at the time, and then I've
Yeah.
been promoted twice since then. And now with the new world of college football, we kind of went to a new NFL style model where we have a general manager and we have the director of player personnel, and then now the director of scouting, along with all of our huge team of recruiting analysts and assistant director of player personnel. And it's a big 10-person team we got now.
That is awesome, man. And like I mentioned, this so much of this page is recruiting, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
It's that I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that you have their dream job. Just so,
Yeah.
just so you know. It's so pretty cool to be talking to you, man. Why don't we dive into a little bit of the details? So I know you touched on that there used to be like a director of recruiting role at Oklahoma State, and you're now the director of scouting at Utah. So what do you do any recruiting, or is it all scouting? Is it a blend? What does that look like?
So my job is still definitely under the umbrella of recruiting. Um, so everything to do with recruiting, I'm helping out some way or another. But um, kind of like I mentioned earlier, when we went to the NFL model, the director of scouting title is kind of something that you're seeing pop up um, all over the place, and it's a lot. It's a lot of like transfer portal stuff, film evaluation. I mean, the recruiting piece, especially at a place like Utah where we're so about relationships and finding the right kids that fit our culture, like that's always going to be there. I mean, I talk to the kids as much as I can and help the coaches talk to the kids as much as we can. But yeah, the portal is a big part of my job. Just the pre evaluations of everybody, whether they're in or not in or whatever. I mean, the portal happens so fast. Like you don't have time to when a person enters the transfer portal, you don't have time to look everything up. You kind of have to have it ready to go. So that's a big part of my job. Um, and then with the high school stuff, I mean, that's split up between a lot of us. But yeah, same thing. I mean, watching film, figuring out who can be for us, who's not for us, and kind of just going from there.
And so heading in, I know you mentioned portal quite a few times. So it sounds like a
Mhm.
portal is a big part of your job,
Yes.
which obviously,
Yeah.
but so do you like, and we'll touch more on like details of this later, but do you start to develop a list on your own as the portal comes like, hey, there's these 100 guys or 25 guys that I think are likely to hit the portal that could be worth their time? Or does someone give you a list? Kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, no, the initial evaluation definitely, and I don't do it all myself. I mean, we have a whole
Yeah.
group of people that do it, but yeah, we have an initial evaluation on just about everyone in the country. It feels like, especially the
Wow.
big schools, Power 5 schools or Power 4 now, and then the local, like, like the Mountain West. And I mean, and it's not like anything other than we're just having evaluation, so we're ready just in case someone does enter the
Yeah.
portal, because you never know. 90% of the kids aren't going to enter the portal, but the one that does, if you don't have something ready for them when uh, Coach Scalley asks, "Hey, I saw a safety from so and so went in the portal. Is he good?" And then if you don't know,
Yeah, you
it's not
better know,
a
right?
great
There
look
you go.
for the personnel staff. So
That's awesome, man. That's really cool insight. And so when you're, and again, this is me just kind of nerding out a little bit, but
yeah,
so like when you're deciding who to start looking at, right? Do you look off like snaps played, and that will tell you how much film will be available for them?
yeah. I mean, we have some cool, like, tools that we can use that chart all that stuff for us. So I mean,
Cool.
every kid is different. I mean, there's certain players that we recruited out of high school that maybe like went to a bigger school and didn't work out for them, but we still think they're good enough to play for us, and they're not going to have any snaps. Um, so there's that, and then there's also, the kids that are all conference in the group of five, or even Power Five.
Yeah.
I need to get used to that Power Four. Uh, but yeah, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. We just, for the personnel staff, we just try and uh, uncover everything, flip over every stone, and don't leave anything um, up to chance. And we just try and watch everybody. That's kind of what we do.
Just scout literally everybody with a pulse, and then you find the
Yes,
good one somewhere in
yes,
there, right? Yeah.
yes.
So I think this next question is one a lot of people find interesting. I know for me, it's one that I'm curious about. So for a recruiting class, so not transfer portal guys, but actual recruits coming out of high school.
Hmm.
Um, when do you start scouting the class? So imagine we're talking about the class of like 2028. Do
Yeah.
you start scouting them in 2022, 2023? And if that is the case, kind of where do you find guys at that age group to start scouting?
So, especially in the state of Utah, we try and know everybody as soon as they get into high school. And I work really closely with the defensive side of the ball, because that's where I started with the defense side of the ball, still there. But so if you know anything about Coach Scally, he loves the state. Like he wants the kids from Utah to come to Utah.
Yeah,
So um, and then Lewis Powell too. He's super connected, and he gets us on kids super early just from his connections with the area. But
cool.
long story short, we kind of in February ish we reach out to just about every high school coach in the state, if not every high school coach in the state, and we say, "Hey, you got any guys you want us to watch?" And they send us their guys, and we watch them. So I'm pretty confident that I've watched, or at least not me personally, but between our whole staff and um, the coaching staff and our personnel staff and stuff, I think we've watched at least everyone in the 2026 class and up. And then so
Wow.
for me, and some of the guys on our recruiting staff, we'll start watching freshman kids if they get offers, or if a
Mhm.
coach we have a good relationship with is like, "Hey, you need to get on this kid." We'll watch his film. I mean, that's what our job is. So there's definitely situations where a 2028, 2027 kid will, "Hey, this film pops, coach, you should watch it and offer him. Let's be his first offer." So
That's
um,
very cool. And
yeah,
so basically, you lay the groundwork. Just you hit up
yeah,
all the coaches. All the coaches tell you who the guys are, and that's kind of where you start.
yeah.
That's really cool.
And
That's
another cool thing we have going here is all of our coach, or not all of them, but most of our coaches have been in the state or in our program for so long. Like, we have great relationships with the high schools around here. So it's not like the first time you ever talking to these guys. I mean, they're all friends now, and they communicate well and get their kids watched by our guys. And if they have a couple guys we like, we usually do well with them. So
now that's a good point too. I'm sure that helps a ton with
oh
recruiting
yeah,
because like it
yeah.
feels like yeah.
Next year will be my fourth season, and I'm still the baby. So they treat me like I'm
That's,
brand new.
hey, that's a really good thing though, right? Where
Oh
it's like,
yeah, it's
hey,
awesome.
like yeah. Well, and it's like, it's not just that they've been here a while, they're all like Utah
Oh
rooted.
yeah,
Like a lot of them are Utah people. So
yeah.
really
We
cool.
we love the state and value it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, it is an awesome place, man. I'm from Vegas originally, but I always tell people Utah is my new home. I'm sure you
Yeah,
kind of feel the same.
yeah, yeah.
Where do we? So I guess you kind of touched on this a little, but where do you usually start trying to find your guys that we need to scout? Is that basically just like you said, just reaching out to coaches, or is there
Yeah.
any other avenues you might explore to find those?
Reaching out to coaches and that relationship we have with the high school coaches is probably the best and most successful way we do it. But I mean, we have a whole staff of personnel analysts, and I mean, we have 8 guys on our recruiting staff. So we have recruiting areas that all the coaches do, and we monitor their areas for them on Twitter, and we pay for some scouting services. And
Cool.
there's really no rhyme or reason to how we do it. I mean, sometimes there's going to be a kid that pops up on Twitter, and he'll just have some offers there, and we'll find him that way, or find another kid on Twitter that has no followers even, and then we watch his film and he's really good. So um, there's that piece to it, and then obviously the high school coaches, and then we pay for a couple services that send us guys. Um, but I would say 70% of the people we find are just relationships that we have with high school coaches in our recruiting areas, not just in Utah, but in California and Texas and Florida, all over the place.
That's
Vegas.
awesome. Yeah, Vegas. Yeah, it seems like Vegas has been,
Yeah, it's been a
past
good
two
year for
weeks.
Vegas.
I've had them on the show. It's St. George, Vegas, Vegas. It was a good week. Funny enough, the one kid, JJ Buchanan, went to the same high school I went to. But small
Really,
world.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
really weird. And so moving on, when scouting players, this is kind of an open-ended question, but when scouting players, are you looking at guys and then bringing them to the coaches to make the final eval, or do the coaches? I think a better way to frame it is, are they giving you specific things to look for, or do you just know specific things to look for? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, so kind of once again, like kind of a mixture of both. I mean, once you work with these guys for long enough, like every coach likes their certain type of player, so you kind of know what
Yeah,
they're looking for. Um, what I always say is like the role, my role is I'm like a point guard on a basketball team. I'm throwing lobs, I'm assists,
yeah,
trying to lead the country in assists. So I'm not trying to find my own guys and get my own recruits. I'm trying to figure out who does Colton Swan like? What does he look for in a backer, and how can I find
yeah,
that? So that all the same for the other 10 coaches. So they all kind of have what they like, and our staff knows who to look for and what works for us, and then we just kind of go from there. So, I mean, there'll be times when I find a guy that I really like, and I'll send him to whoever it is, and the coach will be like, "Oh no, I don't think so," and then you kind of live
you
your
already
life.
knew what my next
Yeah,
question was going to be, so there
yep,
you go.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, but then there's other times where they send you a guy, and you're like, "Oh yeah, let's go. This guy's awesome." So,
yeah.
um,
Do you
just kind of
have do you have that gauge where, like, obviously, like a player, and I won't ask you about anyone specific, but it's like they're really good, but it's not their style. Is there definitely times where you're like, hey, this guy's so good that I'm just like, I know it's not his type of guy, but he's so impressive that I'm going to pound the table a little for him to really check this kid out?
yeah. I mean that happens sometimes, and then at that point, it's just kind of up to the coach. Like if
Yeah.
they like a certain linebacker that's a certain height, wingspan, all that athletic ability, but this kid is shorter and doesn't have all the measurables, but look at him play. I mean,
Yeah.
um, then yeah, we'll go after him. It's once again, I mean, case by case. Not every kid is gonna fit our program, so
Cool.
it just kind of depends.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm sure a lot of people are really going to enjoy this interview. It's been awesome having you on, Mason. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. And I
Yeah,
know we are all looking forward to this season. I'm sure you're just as excited as we are.
yeah.
So
No, we can't wait.
keep building that pipeline, man. Thank you so much. Have a
Yep.
great 4th of July. Talk to you
Alrighty.
soon.
You as well. See ya.
Okay, guys, that was an awesome interview with Mason Yelico. Such a cool guy. Again, if you enjoyed it, smash the like button. Also, maybe drop a comment on what you thought was the most interesting thing. I'm sure a lot of you guys are fans of recruiting because we talk about it so much on this channel. that's really one of my big passions for college football. And for a guy like him to come on, not only was it fun, but it was just a really unique opportunity for me, not even doing it on the podcast, but to talk to someone at such a level in the scouting slash recruiting department and kind of pick his brain a little. I thought that was a ton of fun. The next thing we're going to talk about, guys, is going to be Utah being picked to finish first according to the media preseason poll. Really big honor for Utah, but I think the reason it's worth talking about is, just breaking it down a little. But on top of that, if you're on Twitter, there's a lot of shade being thrown by other fan bases where they're acting like it's crazy for Utah to think that they're going to come in and win year one. And I think when you have the media preseason poll, justifying the high hopes and the optimism from Utah fans, I think that's a really good sign, right? And I think it tells other fan bases like, hey, this isn't just us being crazy and thinking we have, just acting super bombastic and saying we're going to win the league our first year. It's like, no, we are picked to win the league the first year. A lot of people have us winning the league pretty significantly. And I think the Big 12 preseason poll, I'm going to dive into the specifics of it here in a second, but it kind of adds up with what a lot of other people are saying. So I'm going to put this graphic on the screen. So this is from an article from Big12Sports.com, but this is the Big 12 football media preseason poll. The number in parentheses next to the team name, not every team has the number in parentheses, and there's a reason. It's because that's your number of first place votes. So how many first place votes did your team receive? And so it's worth noting that Utah has the most first place votes at 20, Kansas State at 19. But then that number in the other column, the 906 number for Utah and the 889 for Kansas State, that number is referring to how many total points you receive. So if you get first place, you get a fat chunk of points. Second place, you get a good chunk of points. Third, fourth, and so on. And the points go down for how low your ranking was in each person's poll, and they add up those total points. Now, I think it's reflecting a lot of what we've seen in the media polls, right? Utah is slightly ahead of Kansas State to be the favorite to win the conference, but it's pretty much neck and neck. And then Oklahoma, a small chunk behind them. And then you've got teams like Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State kind of in the mix. Kansas and Arizona a good amount higher than Iowa State, but still, you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. And it's something I've mentioned in my videos. Look at that Texas Tech through Iowa State, 661, 581, 551, a super competitive race for that middle of the Big 12. And I think it reflects they don't know who the next best teams are going to be. They don't know yet who's going to give people fits. They expect that UCF, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Iowa State could all give people problems, right? But I think it's a cool statement that Utah is the clear top team with Kansas State extremely close behind. And I think this actually gives a little credence to Oklahoma State, which I've been wondering why Oklahoma State's not getting a little more buzz. Obviously Ollie Gordon had the off the field situation recently, but before that, it felt like Oklahoma State, considering he's going to be involved, should be closer to the rest of the group than he's being given credit for. So that's kind of the media preseason poll. Pretty cool for Utah to be as high as they are and to get that credit. I would go as far as to say I feel that Kansas State might be a little too close to Utah, if I'm being honest, and I'm biased for sure, but I do feel that way. I do feel like Utah is the clear favorite. You look at the talent we have coming back. You even look at some of the defensive numbers I just went over year after year. I think it's fair for Utah to be considered the clear favorite there. Anyways, though, the next thing we're going to go into, Manny Fuller committed to Utah recently. He's a safety / running back. He came on the channel yesterday, did an interview. This is the first time we're premiering it live. If you guys appreciate the interview, smash the like button. Super cool kid, real good head on his shoulders. I'm excited to throw it up there. Let's go ahead and dive into the Manny Fuller interview. All right, guys, and we have a super fun guest with us today, Manny Fuller out of Del Valle, Texas. Super excited to have you on, man. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. What about you?
I'm doing great, man. And earlier this week, Manny committed to Utah. He's a guy I think a lot of you will be excited about. Really good tape, really exciting player. Manny, can you tell the fans at home a little about yourself? Give them a little info about who you are off the field.
I'm Manny Fuller. I'm from El Paso, Texas. I'm going into my senior year of high school. I'm a three-sport athlete: football, basketball, track. I just like hanging out with my friends, chilling at the crib, and just playing sports. That's about it.
That's awesome. Are you excited for the new college football game?
Oh yeah, I'd already pre-ordered it. Or no. My pops, like I done told him as soon as it's wrong, I'm you gonna have to get it. You gonna have to get it for me.
Yeah, good, man. That's what you got. I already told my wife. I said that's my delayed Father's Day present is
Yeah,
is getting a
I need.
weekend to
I,
just play that game.
yeah.
This is for your age group. This is like your first iteration of that game, right? You guys never got
Yeah,
to really play it.
yeah, my brother had it. I used to watch him play, and I played a little bit, but I ain't like really like
Yeah.
I couldn't really like recall nothing from it.
Well, you're in for a treat, man. It should be a good time. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. Let's talk about the recruiting process with you, Manny. Who was the main person from Utah recruiting you? Who did you feel like you had the best connection with?
So the main person from Utah was Coach Scalley, the DC. But the first person who called me was Coach Quinn, the running backs coach, because
Yeah.
obviously I play both sides of the ball and I'm a running back. But nah, ever since after that, it was just mainly Coach Scalley. He was the one who offered me and everything, and after that, he just kept that ongoing relationship with me.
I'm not surprised at all. Judging by your tape, I could see Scally loving you because you're hitting hard, you're making plays. Did they tell you about the relentless, nasty, smart ball
Yeah,
hawks?
I know about it.
That's a cool thing, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. And so when did Utah come on the radar for you and feel like a serious option? Obviously, you said Coach Quinn reached out to you, but when did it start to feel like things were really moving?
First for Utah, they had offered me, but I ain't really like. I didn't think nothing of it because like I didn't really like. I do watch college football. I know a lot about college football, but I wasn't really like paying attention to Utah. Like to me, it was just Utah. I didn't really at the time. I didn't know how serious they were, and I know like the culture they had,
Yeah.
and so like they were just an offer at the time. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't want to live in Utah. I'm not worried about that. They just another offer.
Yeah.
They just another offer. So at first they weren't nothing. And then and then Coach Scalley really tried to make a relationship with me, and then he came to see me, and then he like just told me his resume and all that. And then after that, I started like doing some research a little bit and figure out, oh, these dudes serious. And
Yeah.
then I took a visit out there, and I loved it. And then yeah, that's when I really like knew Utah was serious for me and the option I would definitely pick.
That's awesome. That's a cool perspective because I think us being in Utah in the past few years of success Utah's had, we feel like it's all about Utah. So that's cool insight from being from Texas. So,
Yeah.
can you tell us about the visit? Obviously, it was super influential in your decision, and and then you can touch a little. Can you actually walk us through what the visit was like? Kind of arriving, what the day goes, what your different agenda plans are. Kind of talk about that.
So arriving, took that long walk through the airport to the front. Uh, Xavier Goldsmith, one of the personnel assistants, picked us up, and then first thing recognized the snow caps on the mountains in June, and I was like, man, I'm really in Utah right now.
Yeah,
And then we went to the facilities, had a tour around there a little bit. Then we had lunch, and then after that, we took us to the hotel. We chilled, and then after that, we had dinner. I went to the players. We had a good time. And then next day is a bunch of meetings from start to finish. It's a lot of on them official visits, a lot of information to take in. And but yeah, Saturday we just had woke up, had breakfast, and then had like with the academic advisors for like the whatever major you wanna choose. And then yeah, just a bunch of meetings I like to say for real.
You know, it's funny. No, I don't think anyone else has mentioned that. What you must be pretty serious about it. What's the major you're gonna be picking in college?
I want to be a I want to be a radiologist.
Wow, that is unique. That is a real
Yeah,
unique
but
choice.
it's with the medical field. If not a radiologist, somewhere in the medical field, people always be getting sick or getting hurt doing dumb stuff.
That's a
So
smart mindset, man. Yeah, you always have a job. There you go. Anything else to touch on about the visit?
great time,
Awesome.
great time.
so so obviously you had a bit of a delay, right, before you actually committed to Utah, like between the visit and the commitment.
Yeah.
When was the moment? Did you kind of know during the visit and then you just gave it some time? Tell us about that. When was the moment you decided that Utah was the school you were going to commit to?
All right, here's the story. So before the Utah visit, I took a visit to Oregon State. It was a great visit. It was my first official visit. I'm like, oh man, I'm going here. I'm going to Oregon State, but I didn't want to like I'm still like after that I was like, oh let me see Utah first or something. Let me
Uh-huh.
see what they talking about. And then I went. I was like, oh okay, like this school, like okay, I could really like consider coming here. And then went by. I took my other visits, enjoyed those two. And then I'm just like, I'm stressing. I'm stressing bad. I don't know to pick Oregon State or Utah, and I'm going through it. My mind is all over the place. And then I remember I was taking a nap, and then Coach Scalley he called me, and then he just like we just talked on the phone. And after that, I was like I don't know, just like a weight just felt lifted off my shoulders. I was like, man, I'm going to Utah. Yeah. And then a couple of days later, I called him and I was like, Coach, I'm trying to be a U, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything he said on the phone worth mentioning
It was
made
just
it feel? Yeah.
it was just like a regular conversation, and he was just telling me that he wanted me at the school, and then but like it was not yeah he ain't told me before, and then
Yeah.
I don't know after that it's just everything just felt cool, and I was like, oh I think this is where I'm trying to go, and so yeah I just decided after that everything was cool. I felt calm. I wasn't stressing no more. I just knew it.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear that. It sounds like you just the stars just aligned there for you.
Some
Eh,
told me, yo, you gotta take it, but to Salt Lake. Go to Salt Lake,
Yeah.
man.
That's awesome, man. So now let's talk a little about on the field. So obviously you played a couple different positions, but from this conversation, I think I know the answer to this question because you mentioned Coach Scalley probably 10 times, which is a good thing. That means he's for Utah fans right outside of Witt, he's the next guy.
Yeah,
Like he's the
yeah.
man. And
Mhm.
so I'm guessing they've given you some info about what they see you playing at the college level. And I'm also guessing that they see you playing safety. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Safety.
And any specifics like in the box or free safety? Do they give you any details on that?
No, I think free safety most likely, for sure.
That
Hopefully,
that adds
hopefully I
up.
can put on some more weight and play in the box. Hopefully,
Hopefully, just a little more weight, and then you're playing both. Right there, you
yeah.
go.
Fine by me.
All right, man. And then before we get out of here, is there anyone in the NFL or college that you try to model your game after?
Uh, no, I don't got one off the top of my head. I'm watching everybody, to be honest, because I play both sides of the ball, so I'm watching. I'm right now. I'm watching everybody.
Do you have a team? Are you a Cowboys fan, or
I'm, a,
do you
I'm
have a team?
no, don't mention Cowboys around me. I'm a I'm a Dolphins fan. It's just when
Okay,
I grow up, I don't know. Maybe I just like the colors or something. We had Jarvis Landry, and I
uh,
just went with them.
That's awesome, man. All right. Well, thank you so much, Manny, for coming on, man. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure the coaching staff's just as excited as I am to get you in Salt Lake and get you on the field, man. Good luck out there.
Appreciate you.
And as I mentioned before, guys, Manny Fuller, thank you so much for coming on and doing the interview. Super nice guy, super fun guy to talk to, and a guy that really, sometimes you watch the tape and it's clear when they're an athlete, right? They have two positions, that there's one position that they're clearly better at, right? That's not what I saw in Manny's tape. I saw a guy that was really good at free safety and really good at running back. um, I'd say if I picked one that was more impressive, it might be running back because it was really impressive running back tape. But the free safety tape was really good too. There was just so many highlights of running back. He kept putting them in. So a guy that looks like he really could be an impact player at either position. Maybe he could be a Sione Vaki-esque type of guy, right? Maybe down the line he's playing both sides. But super cool of him to come on. Really enjoyed the interview. If you guys appreciate it, smash the like button. Again, super cool kid. Thanks for coming on. And maybe comment down below if you guys have an opinion. Do you see Manny Fuller playing running back, or do you see him playing free safety at the college level? All right, guys. Next up, we have another interview with another Utah commit, Nella Tupo, that plays edge rusher and tight end. He's committed to Utah for the class of 2025. Super fun kid to talk to. Really great energy. Very outgoing. Feels like a fun kid. Go ahead and watch the interview. Check it out. And in the comments, let me know what you think of him, and I'll put some highlights on while we watch. All right, guys, and here we have Nila Topu. I think I'm saying it right. I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm not.
You're
But
not.
good to good to have you on the show tonight, man. Why don't you tell people how to actually say your name?
My full name is Daniela Tupo, but I get called Nella Tupo,
Nella
and
Tupu.
yeah, that's how I say my name.
Cool. Awesome, man. Cool. So why don't you tell the people a little about yourself, kind of your background and how you got here?
Yeah. So as you guys know, my name is Daniela Tupo or Nella Tupo. Come from Sacramento, California. Going to Folsom High School currently. And just grew up a football fan. Playing football. That's why I'm here right now. And just living life.
That's all. When did you start playing football? How old were you?
Um, so I grew up loving football, but I started freshman year.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty impressive to be playing D1 football and only start
Yep.
your freshman year. That's
See,
that's awesome.
it's in the genes. It's in the genes.
There you go, man. Do you have a lot of family that played football as well?
Yes, I do. Most of my family is at Grant High School,
Okay.
but yeah, my uncle Sionevaki, he's in the NFL now. But
Okay,
yeah,
I didn't know that. Sione Vaki's your uncle. That's really
yeah.
cool, man. So I don't know how much you know about the channel, but we do like really in-depth breakdowns. So I've been shouting Sione's praises since like 2 years ago. He was a beast. Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah, I remember him. That's awesome. So cool. So let's talk about you today, though, right? It's not about Sione today. He got a ton of hype for months and months. So
Yeah,
why
yeah.
don't you tell us a little about the recruitment process? Kind of who was the main person from Utah recruiting you? Who did you feel like you had the best connection with?
So the main person that was recruiting me was Coach Powell. He's been looking at me since freshman year. Sophomore year, I'm super grateful for the opportunity for him to throw out that full scholarship offer.
Okay.
Um, but but yeah, but as I started, learning different positions and playing tight end, I also started getting contact with Coach Fred Whittingham, and so he offered me on the offensive side of the ball, and now I play both sides. But as in having a better connection, I'd say Coach Powell because you know him looking at me since freshman year, really believing in me to throw out that offer. At the time I was still playing offensive line. I was an offensive tackle. Yeah, playing edge as well, but not as much.
Yeah.
So he, believed in me to the point where he threw out my offer, and now we're here.
So that was kind of like the best connection, mainly just you guys connected early and just kept that relationship. That's awesome, man. And when did Utah first come on the radar for you? I know you said they offered you, but when did the conversations first start happening and when you felt like, okay, they're pretty interested in me?
I'd say, to be honest, from my standpoint, I say from the start.
Yeah.
Just growing up a Ute fan. My uncle played for the Utes. I own a key. Just growing up watching, watching him and just watching the overall team. That's always been a big goal of mine to go and achieve. And now that I finally got it, it's just been a big achievement for me. Um, but you know, it started getting more serious, I'd say, during my junior season.
Okay.
And at the end of my football season, junior year, that's when I committed and I decided I want to be a Utah Ute.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear you grew up a Utah fan. It's a good time too. If you're a Utah fan and a guy that's going to play for Utah, it's like a fun time to be a Utah fan.
Right,
Feels
right,
like big things are about to happen. So
right.
good, good thing you joined up. And so obviously you had your visit. Can you tell us a little about the visit? Walk us through the process and what that day looks like.
Man, it's hard to explain it. It's such a great experience. You know, even from getting off the plane and being greeted by the coaches, specifically Coach Murdoch and some of the GAs. Um, it's just such a great feeling. I felt the love instantly when I got to the U. The day consists of a lot of eating, a lot of eating.
Everybody says that. Everybody says you're just eating all day. That's what
I mean,
everyone
we're
says.
Polynesian, so we need to eat a lot. We need to eat a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but they took us to some meetings. We got to learn what it's like to be a U. The standards and the expectations we need to meet. And the U's have high expectations, and they want us to be great. And not even from on the field, but off the field.
Yeah,
In academics and just our overall life. And it's just such a great experience. Getting to know all the coaching staff, and you know, as I started to talk to most of them, I started to feel like they really care for me and really support me, and they can support me. And that's just how it went.
that's awesome, man. I'm sure your parents loved hearing about the academics, right? I'm sure they like that.
Right. Oh wow. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very cool, man. And so when was the moment that you decided you were going to commit to Utah? So was that something happened? Like when did you mentally decide, all right, you know what, this is going to happen? I mean, it sounds like you were a Utah fan already, so we had the shoe in there. But when was the moment for you where you made the decision?
I'd say it was like way before the official visit.
Mhm.
Um, I'd say at the end of my football season, Coach Powell hit me up talking about a committable offer. You can commit now, and having a deep talk with my family. You know,
Yeah,
just knowing Coach Powell and what the staff can do for me, and the development I can get at the U. That's basically when we decided. It's time to be a U. It's time to achieve that goal that you've had
that's
all your life.
great. That's awesome, man. I love to hear that. So kind of going shifting more to on the field and kind of how you see yourself developing at Utah. I know you've mentioned Coach Powell a lot, so I'm guessing I know the answer to this question, but has Utah given you any info? I know you said Whittingham and Powell offered you, but
Mhm.
have they told you what you're going to play? Are they going to try out at different spots? Are you going to be playing edge? What's it looking like?
Yeah. So tight end DN is what they want to see me at.
Cool.
So they're basically just saying, come in, have the mindset of working your tail off. Don't worry about the outside noise, and they'll try their hardest, to get me on the field, and whether it's offense or defense, because I got offered for both and come in as an
Yeah.
athlete. So it's just I'm just super grateful. Like it's just really hard to like really think of me,
Yeah.
going in both sides. I'm just really grateful.
Cool, man. And so they're gonna just let you leave it open for you to hit up both sides and kind of just see what happens. That's
Sure.
awesome, man. If you think about it, I mean, two positions, like what a no-brainer for you. Utah fan, edge rusher, and tight end. I mean, what those are the two best positions for Utah. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
perfect
do.
fit. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, though.
Right.
So and then is there anyone in the NFL or in college that you kind of try to model your game from or maybe take some moves from, something like that?
Um. Well, tight end in the NFL, I'd probably say Travis Kelsey.
Yeah.
Um. Just seeing the way he plays, the way he finds the open space in the zone, it's just it's great. But route wise, I really do look at Justin Jefferson a lot. Studying his routes, trying to see how to do this route. Like all the
Yeah.
flashy stuff. But
He's amazing. So I'm with
he
you.
is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
He, he is. But just kind of combining them. Travis Kelsey also can block, so I really see
Yeah.
myself in Travis Kelsey and Justin Jefferson. Trying to
Yeah.
be a
No,
little
I
route.
mean, why not? Who cares?
Right.
Any edge rushers or just tight ends and receivers?
Edge rushers. I'd probably say Bosa. Yeah,
Bosa. I
yeah.
mean,
Even though
he's
I'm a
pretty dang good.
you got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
Bosa.
That's
He's
awesome, man.
a great player. Yeah, I definitely look up to him as well.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on so much tonight, man. It's been awesome. I hope you go kill it at the U, and I'm excited to see you hit the field at either edge rusher or tight end. Should be exciting.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Go Utes. There you
Go
go.
Utes.
What a fun show so far, guys. We got to have a bunch of really cool interviews. Mason Yellico, director of scouting, Manny Fuller, Nella Tupo. Really cool, really good time. So I appreciate you guys if you stuck around this long. I hope you enjoyed them all and had a good time watching them. I know I had a good time getting it all together. So very cool. Just one final topic I wanted to discuss before we get out of here. I put this poll on Twitter the other day. And I said, will this year be a failure no matter what if Utah football doesn't make the CFP? And it didn't get a crazy amount of votes, not nothing, but a little over 100 votes. And 72% of you guys said yes. 28% of you guys said no. So even on a bigger sample size, you got to imagine this is somewhat accurate. That's a good question for you guys in the chat as we get to the end. So you guys that have lasted this long, will this year be a failure no matter what if Utah football doesn't make the CFP? And yes or no, and then why? Why do you believe that? I'd say it's such a tough situation. Like at the end of the day, if Utah doesn't make the CFP, is it a outright failure? No. I mean, we could still have a really good season and not make the CFP. But when I factor in everything and all the talent we have here right now and all the talent that is very likely to leave after this year, I'm leaning towards yes, man. I know that sounds like very, very optimistic about our season, but the truth is 12 teams are going to get in. And if we have a roster as stacked as the one we have right now and we can't make it into the 12-team playoff, seems a little crazy to me. Just being real. I like even if somehow the Big 12 has some crazy good team and we're the runner up in the Big 12, I'm almost, yeah, it's like just making that playoff is a huge factor this year. I think it puts Utah on the map, making that first 12-team playoff. And I really think if we get in, we're probably beating a team. Like I think we'll be super competitive. So that's kind of my opinion on that. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Before we get out of here, guys, please make sure you smash that like button. It'll help get the video out to more Utah fans. Also, comment down below if you appreciated all the interviews or any of the prompt questions I've given you. You want to drop answers to, feel free. And if you haven't subscribed, we are an hour into this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already and you stayed here an hour, you got something wrong with you. You are a sick son of a gun, dude. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right, I'm out of here, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. Go Utes.